Lafont. Now open your eyes. As for me, I'm imagining my grandmother who's recently recovering from a post-operative surgical care to remove a skin sore from her leg. And as you all know, post-operative surgery poses a great risk for infection. And in order to mitigate that risk, every morning she has to remove her gauze, put on a new one, and again before and after she showers, and of course, right before she sleeps. Unfortunately, her experience is not a unique experience.
In fact, she is not alone. This affects millions of people in the US and around the world. We have a solution called Galvani gauze that can help alleviate this universal burden.
What is Galvani gauze? Galvani gauze looks and feels exactly like a gauze that you would find in a first aid kit or at a hospital. It's made out of a polymer that has a special property called electroactivity. This electroactivity is induced simply by your own body heat or by the natural pressure released from cellular growth. The best part about Galvani gauze is it can reduce the time for healing by up to 30%, and it doesn't need a battery.
Now, how do we use these products? First, we identify and clean the wound. Then we apply the material directly into the area and allow the electroactivity to heal. Not only that, but the material also compatible with all the regular medication and ointment in order to care for the wound. So what is the side of this problem? Well, if you put it into a perspective, it would cost the US healthcare system over $50 billion a year.
Let's talk about the numbers. Every year, wounds affect 500,000 US service members, 1.6 million elderly Americans, 6.5 million people who have acute and chronic wounds, and 64 million people who undergone a surgery which required an incision. And let's not forget that the elderly population in the US is increasing each year by 3%.
Thanks, Nick, for the numbers. Now that we know the numbers, let's talk about the social impact. We can reduce the financial burden on the US healthcare system, improve the quality of lives of millions around the world. We can also help trauma-stricken communities, and we can support our military service members. Also, this gauze was originally intended to help our heroic astronauts heal wounds faster in space, so we can help further our endeavor for space exploration. So, is Galvani gauze too good to be true? Well, we did a competitive analysis, and we looked at 3 core factors for the advanced wound care market. This is accelerated healing, low cost, and operational ease. It turns out Galvani gauze checks the box on all 3 fronts. Our nearest competitor, Prosolera, is not low cost at all. And cold laser therapy requires a trained technician and multiple on-site visits.
In order to emphasize Galvani gauze's competitiveness, we compare our price of $124.25 to 2 primary competitors. Prosolera, the only other electroactive gauze on the market, is 5 times more expensive than our product. Not only that, but it requires an external battery to be applied to the wound at all times as well. Cold laser therapy requires multiple on-site visits, each costing a minimum of $150 per hour. You also need a trained technician in order to give this therapy. Now, if you wanted to buy the laser itself, that cost upwards of $2,500. Now, who wants to buy that laser? Not me. As we can see from this breakdown, the leading driver of our price is the cost of procuring raw materials at 67%. This might seem like a big number, but it is significantly low compared to what our competitors are paying to obtain their raw materials. Our next
So for operations and scaling feasibility, our raw material is easily procured by suppliers such as Sigma Aldrich. NASA Langley actually has a device that already manufactures this gauze using this polymer with an electrospinning apparatus. So we're able to scale almost immediately. We can also leverage existing mature distribution channels for medical supplies.
And as my teammate Dev just said, we are able to create and manufacture this product just like this. So what are our markets that we are penetrating? The first market we are penetrating is the post-operative surgical care that sees over 65 million surgeries performed per year. And of course, as we scale, the first market we're targeting is acute and chronic wounds that affect 6.5 million Americans, just like my grandmother. And of course, as we further scale, the next market we are hitting is military wound care with over 500,000 wounds seized per year. And of course, the market that is closest to home, retail and consumer, that is retail at 381 million in sales of private first label bandages and gauze. Now, with all these four markets combined, Galvani Gauze touches all sectors of wound care in the United States.
So now that we know the first market that we're going to penetrate is post-operative surgical care, we created a roadmap. So starting in Q1 of 2024, we're going to file with the FDA. Our major competitor that we mentioned before, Procelera, actually did us a huge favor. They already have FDA approval. This actually gives us a lower threshold to reach in order for us to market within the US. How is this possible? Well, the FDA has a pathway called 501(k) status, and we qualify for either class 1 or class 2. Now, this typically takes about 90 days. As you can see, we give ourselves an entire year. This gives us buffer time, and it also gives us time to create our pilot batch of gauze and create a partnership with an inpatient clinic or hospital here in the great state of Texas. So after 2024 and 2025, assuming we hit all of those milestones I just mentioned, we're able to project what our revenue would be. If we hit Texas Medical Center only and take a very, very modest estimate that we only take less than 1% of the surgical inpatient capacity, that total revenue is over $100,000. Our total profit is over $20,000. Now, let's continue this base case. And remember, it's only a base case. We remain at Texas Medical Center and we take 100% of the surgical capacity there. That's 492 inpatient beds a day. Our total revenue goes up to 17 million. Our total profit exceeds 3 million.
For investment, we plan to use it for product development, legal and regulatory compliance, manufacturing and marketing, and as overhead for contingency.
Our product offers multiple investment benefits, such as effective technology, high feasibility, low cost, market volume, and lower FDA threshold.
And as we conclude, we truly want you to understand how life-changing Galvani Gauze will be. Picture service members wounded in action, or in my case, my grandmother who's affected by post-operative surgical care. Now imagine them rejuvenating their strengths, regaining their life comforts and life rhythms. Galvani Gauze isn't just a promise of accelerated healing, it is a promise of return to a sense of normalcy.
All right, thank you, team, thank you. All right, judges, we have a few minutes for questions. There are mics on your table, so feel free to share those among each other. And whoever wants to go first, please ask questions of the team.
Hi. So first of all, I want to say very, very well done. You know, I hear a lot of pitches and from founders who have had a lot more time to prepare that didn't come across the way this one did. So congratulations. Let's start there. That was a very well done pitch. So where I have questions is at scale. There are kind of two questions to this. So number one, do you have an answer for how difficult it might be for you to create the level of partnership necessary with NASA to be able to access their manufacturing facilities to be able to develop and scale this product? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Frederick. So to our benefit, the scientist and the group that she works in that created the polymer, they're actually heavily involved in the device that manufactures the fabric mat that would be the gauze. So the IP is actually mentioned in the patent. So they kind of go, they're partnered essentially. So the manufacturing and the actual material itself.
Very good. So the next question is, what I tend to find with product manufacturing, companies that are engaged in a product manufacturing, is that the cost increases at scale. So it seems like you have a fixed cost model. Can you help me understand from a variability standpoint how the cost increases at scale, or how you're going to be able to manage that cost to maintain your profit margin?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's part of the reason why we as a team agreed to create the slide of the anatomy of a price in terms of proportion. So we do see that proportion for manufacturing increasing in that pie over time, particularly as we get into the hyper growth stage. We put that in the year 5 model, assuming that we have to reach that 492 beds. What would that take for manufacturing? And therefore, our cost increases slightly for Texas Medical Center in that base case in year 5.
Great job again. I have a few questions. One, how much is it going to take to actually launch this? Because you guys talk about costs. I'm just thinking about what is the actual baseline that you will need to get the first 2 years of runway?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so. There's 3 critical areas, and really referring back to the roadmap. I think filing with the FDA, doing that in a very prudent manner with a good lawyer, and creating those partnerships with the inpatient clinics here in Texas. So we've actually already started conversations with University of Texas Medical Branch just to gauge interest, and I think forming that partnership is extremely important. Us understanding the market both. And it's interesting because we have two components of that market. We have the end user, the patient. We have to make sure they're comfortable and that it's working. But the healthcare providers themselves will be the ones that are procuring it in this first market that we're penetrating. So I believe the major milestone threshold that we have to reach is building their trust. And
how much will you need for this to launch? Is the mic?
I see. Yes. So if we were to be, as all startups, I suppose are very scrappy, we think we can do this with just a little over $100,000.
First of all, it's really hard to go first, and you guys set the bar really high. So thank you so much for that presentation.
Thank you.
So my question is obviously going to be related to intellectual property. So, regarding the technology itself, I think you're borrowing and looking at the NASA technology and then applying it here. So do you guys see any room for an improvement and further improvement over the existing technology, number one? And number two, I will be interested in your marketing strategy because I see this as a part of maybe a trademark right now. That's the image that I'm seeing in front of me. But do you have any other form of intellectual property that you guys will be interested in looking into?
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a pretty fun creative discussion on the second part of your question. Is this branding, we can credit Annabelle, looks beautiful. We would love to trademark the actual logo, but also if the gauze looks unique in itself, whether it's a color or a stripe, then whoever's using it would know. First of all, just from a functionality standpoint, this is the electroactive gauze versus a regular gauze. From the second standpoint, it's branding as well. So let's say there's a blue stripe on the gauze, readily recognizable. This is Galvani gauze. And as far as the first part of your question for the IP, is there anything that we would like to improve upon? I believe that if we can get over 1 square meter, 1 square meter is sufficient for, our first about 5 years. But for the electrospinning device that will create the gauze, if we can get to 2-3 square meters, per round, I think that we're able to hyperscale even more. And so I think if we can do that, that would maybe be our first priority if we're looking to improve the entire process.
All right, and that is the time that we have. So thank you, Team Galvani God.